Jake Morrison pressed his face against the viewing window as the transport ship approached Kepler Station. The massive structure hung in space like a giant metal flower, its arms reaching out toward the swirling colors of the gas giant below. Hundreds of ships moved around it like busy insects. Some shapes he recognized as human vessels, others completely alien. "First time seeing the station?" asked Dr. Alan Carter, settling into the seat beside him. The older man had kind eyes behind his glasses and had been Jake's guide since they left Earth 3 days ago. "Yeah," Jake said, trying to keep the nervousness out of his voice. "It's bigger than I thought it would be." Dr. Carter smiled. "Wait until you see the inside. Kepler Station houses over 50,000 beings from 12 different species. You're going to be one of only about 300 humans on board." Jake's stomach twisted a little at that reminder. At 16, he was part of the first youth exchange program between Earth and the Galactic Council. His father, a diplomatic attaché, had pulled strings to get him this opportunity. Jake wanted to make him proud, but right now he mostly felt scared. The docking process took another hour. Jake watched through the window as they moved through the station's outer ring, past loading bays where strange creatures in environmental suits moved cargo with mechanical arms. Some had scales, others looked like walking trees, and a few seemed to be made of metal and light. "Remember what we talked about," Dr. Carter said as they prepared to disembark. "Different species have different ideas about personal space, communication, and respect. What seems rude to us might be normal to them, and what we think is friendly might make them uncomfortable." Jake nodded, checking his universal translator one more time. The small device clipped to his ear would help him understand the various alien languages, though most of the station operated in Standard Galactic, which was based on simplified English. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Jake got his first real taste of alien air. It smelled different, cleaner somehow, with hints of ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. "Dr. Carter, welcome back." A tall woman in a blue security uniform approached them. Her badge read, "Commander Lisa Barnes," and she had the confident walk of someone used to being in charge. "And you must be Jake Morrison." "I'm the head of station security." "Nice to meet you, ma'am," Jake said, shaking her hand. "I'll be keeping an eye on you during your stay," Commander Barnes said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Not because I expect trouble, but because you're precious cargo. Earth doesn't send many of its young ones out here." They walked through the arrival area, and Jake tried not to stare at the other beings around them. A group of tall, scaled creatures stood near one wall, their reptilian faces turning to watch as the humans passed. Their leader, a young one about Jake's age, had bright green scales and golden eyes that seemed to measure Jake from head to toe. "Those are Altarians," Dr. Carter said quietly. "Proud warrior culture. They value strength and honor above most things." Near the transport schedules, a family of plant-like beings swayed gently as they communicated through color changes in their bark-like skin. These had to be Viridians, Jake realized, remembering his briefings. They were known for being peaceful and wise. "The quarters we've assigned you are in Section 7, Commander Barnes explained as they walked. "It's a mixed area with students from several species. You'll be sharing common spaces with your corridor mates, but you'll have your own private room." They took a transport tube that moved through the station like a subway car. Jake watched the different levels flash by through transparent sections. He saw vast hydroponic gardens, laboratories with equipment he didn't recognize, and what looked like a shopping district with stores that catered to various alien needs. "The station runs on a 26-hour cycle," Dr. Carter explained. "Most species have adapted to it reasonably well. You'll attend classes in xenobiology, galactic history, and interspecies communication. There are also recreational activities and cultural exchange programs." Jake's room turned out to be smaller than his bedroom back home, but comfortable. The bed was adjustable for different body types, and the walls could display images from Earth or any of the other member worlds. Dr. Carter helped him unpack his few belongings. "I want you to be careful." "Jake," Dr. Carter said, his voice more serious than before. "Most of the beings here are friendly, but humans are still relatively new to galactic society. Some species see us as weak or primitive. Don't let anyone push you around, but don't go looking for fights either." After Dr. Carter left, Jake sat on his bed and tried to process everything. Through his small window, he could see part of the gas giant's swirling atmosphere. 3 moons hung in the distance like silver coins. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. A soft chime indicated someone was at his door. Jake opened it to find a small insect-like creature with multiple arms and large compound eyes. This had to be a Korthak, known for their logical minds and technological skills. "Greetings, human Jake Morrison," the being said in perfectly pronounced standard Galactic. "I am designated Click Whistle Hum, though you may call me Click for simplicity. I reside in the accommodation unit adjacent to yours." "Hi, Click," Jake said, relieved to meet someone friendly. "Nice to meet you." "I have been assigned to assist with your integration into station social dynamics," Click continued. "Perhaps you would like to join me for the evening meal period. The communal dining area serves food suitable for most species." Jake was hungry, and eating alone didn't appeal to him. "That sounds great." The dining hall was enormous, with different sections designed for various dietary needs. Jake got something that looked like chicken and rice from the human-compatible section, while Click selected a bowl of what appeared to be glowing blue protein cubes. They sat at a table near the center of the room. Jake noticed the Altarian group from earlier sitting at a larger table across the dining area. The young one with green scales kept glancing in his direction. "That is Zix-4, Click said, following Jake's gaze. "He is what your species might call a troublemaker. Altarians his age often seek to prove themselves through physical challenges. Should I be worried?" Jake asked. Click's mandibles clicked together in what Jake hoped was the equivalent of a shrug. "Probably not. Station regulations prohibit violence. However, Altarians have different definitions of what constitutes violence compared to humans." As if summoned by their conversation, Zix-4 stood up from his table and began walking toward them. His friends followed, their scales shifting to darker colors that Jake's briefings had warned him indicated aggression or excitement. "Here comes your chance to make a first impression," Click whispered. "Remember, to Altarians, showing fear is worse than showing anger." Jake straightened his shoulders and tried to look confident as the group of young aliens approached his table. Whatever was about to happen, he had a feeling his quiet introduction to station life was about to end. Zix-4 stopped in front of Jake's table, his golden eyes looking down at the human teenager. Up close, Jake could see that the Altarian was taller than he had appeared from across the room, maybe 6.5 feet, with muscles visible beneath his scaled skin. His three friends spread out behind him, creating a half circle that blocked Jake's view of the rest of the dining hall. "So you are the new human," Zix-4 said, his voice carrying a slight hiss that the translator couldn't quite eliminate. "I am Zix-4 of the Altarian Defense Caste. I have heard interesting things about your species." Jake stood up slowly, trying to remember Dr. Carter's advice about not showing fear. "I'm Jake Morrison. Nice to meet you." "Morrison," Zix-4 repeated as if testing the word. "Tell me, Morrison, is it true that humans are as fragile as the stories say? That your bones break easily and your skin tears like soft fabric?" Click made a nervous chittering sound. Several other beings in the dining hall had stopped eating to watch the confrontation. Jake could feel dozens of alien eyes on him. "We're tougher than we look," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. Zix-4's scales shifted to a brighter green, which Jake hoped meant amusement rather than anger. "Interesting. Among my people, we test such claims directly. A young Altarian proves their strength through physical challenge. I'm not looking for trouble," Jake said. "I just want to finish my dinner." "Of course," Zix-4 said, his tone suddenly friendly. "I do not seek trouble either. Perhaps we could be friends. In fact, let me demonstrate Altarian friendship." Without warning, Zix-4 drew back his scaled fist and struck Jake in the shoulder. To an Altarian, it was probably meant as a playful gesture, like a human might give someone a friendly punch on the arm. But Zix-4's idea of gentle was very different from a human's. The blow sent Jake stumbling backward. His shoulder exploded with pain, and he could feel his arm going numb. The force knocked him off balance, and he crashed into the metal support beam behind their table. Jake's head struck the beam with a solid thunk that echoed through the suddenly quiet dining hall. Stars exploded across his vision, and he slid down the beam to sit heavily on the floor. Something warm trickled down his forehead. "Oh no," Jake heard Click whisper. Zix-4 stood frozen, staring down at Jake with what might have been shock on his reptilian features. That was meant to be gentle," he said, his voice uncertain for the first time. Jake touched his forehead and his fingers came away red. It was just a small cut, but blood was dripping steadily from the wound. A few drops fell to the metal floor of the dining hall. That's when everything went wrong. The moment Jake's blood hit the station's biosensors built into the floor, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in sequence along the walls. The pleasant background hum of the station's system suddenly changed to an urgent pulsing tone. "Warning," announced the station's computer voice. "Omega protocol activated. All non-essential personnel report to designated safe zones immediately." "This is not a drill." Jake looked up in confusion, blood still trickling down his face. Around the dining hall, aliens were standing up from their tables, looking around in panic. Many began moving quickly toward the exits. "What's happening?" Jake asked. But Click was already backing away from him, compound eyes wide with what could only be fear. Heavy blast doors began sliding closed over the dining hall entrances. Jake could hear the whine of emergency systems throughout the station. The lights had changed from normal white to a harsh red that made everything look like a scene from a nightmare. Zix-4 and his friends huddled together, their scales now a pale, frightened color that Jake's briefings had said indicated extreme distress among Altarians. "What have I done?" Zix-4 whispered. "I only struck him gently." "How could such a small injury cause this?" Security officers burst through the blast doors just before they sealed completely. Commander Barnes was among them, her face grim as she surveyed the scene. She looked at Jake sitting on the floor, then at the small pool of blood beside him, then at her handheld scanner. "Everyone stay calm," she announced, though her own voice sounded anything but calm. "We need this area cleared immediately. All students return to your quarters and remain there until further notice." More security officers entered, setting up a perimeter around Jake. They moved with the efficiency of people responding to a serious emergency, not a minor injury in a dining hall. "Commander, what's going on?" Jake asked as a medic knelt beside him to examine his head wound. "It's just a small cut." Commander Barnes looked at him strangely, then spoke into her communication device. "Dr. Carter to the dining hall, emergency priority. Tell him to bring his medical kit and the special scanner." "Special scanner?" Jake repeated, but the commander didn't answer. Dr. Carter arrived within minutes, moving faster than Jake had ever seen him move. He carried a medical bag and a device Jake didn't recognize, something that looked more advanced than the standard medical equipment he'd seen on the station. "Jake, are you all right?" Dr. Carter asked, but his eyes were focused on the blood on the floor, not on Jake's injury. "I'm fine, it's just a bump on the head," Jake said. "But everyone's acting like I'm dying or something." Dr. Carter activated his scanner and pointed it at the blood drops. The device made a series of beeps and Dr. Carter's face went pale. He immediately pulled out a secure communication device, the kind Jake had seen his father use for classified diplomatic conversations. "This is Carter," he said into the device. "We have a Code Omega situation on Kepler Station." "Confirm, Code Omega. I need immediate contact with Earth Command, maximum security protocols." "Dr. Carter," Commander Barnes said quietly. "How bad is this?" Dr. Carter looked around the dining hall, at the frightened alien students, at the security perimeter, at Jake sitting confused on the floor with blood on his forehead. "Bad," he said simply. "We need to lock down this station until Earth Command can get here. And we need to keep Jake safe until then." "Safe from what?" Jake asked, but nobody answered him. Across the hall, Zix-4 was still staring at Jake with growing horror. "I don't understand," the young Altarian said to his friends. It was just a friendly gesture. How could hurting one human cause such chaos? His friends had no answer. Like everyone else in the dining hall, they were beginning to realize that they had seriously underestimated the importance of the human teenager sitting on the floor. Jake touched his head wound again, still bleeding slightly. Such a small amount of blood, he thought. How could a few drops cause the entire station to go into emergency lockdown? He was about to find out that sometimes the smallest things could change everything, and that being human in a galaxy full of aliens was far more complicated than anyone had told him. Dr. Carter finished treating Jake's head wound in the station's medical bay, while security guards stood outside the door. The cut had stopped bleeding, but the emergency protocols were still active throughout Kepler Station. Jake could hear announcements echoing through the corridors, directing non-essential personnel to remain in their quarters. "Dr. Carter, you have to tell me what's going on," Jake said as the older man packed away his medical supplies. "Everyone's treating me like I'm some kind of dangerous weapon." Dr. Carter sat down heavily in the chair across from Jake's medical bed. For the first time since Jake had known him, the man looked old and tired.
Jake, I need to ask you some questions about your family history.
Has anyone ever told you about your great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather?
Jake frowned. You mean my mom's grandfather? He died before I was born. Dad said he was in the military, but that's about all I know. What about medical records? Have you ever had genetic testing done? Or noticed anything unusual about your health?
Jake shook his head.
I'm totally normal. I mean, I heal pretty fast when I get hurt, and I've never really gotten sick, but lots of people are like that. Dr. Carter's secure communication device buzzed. He answered it quickly. Carter here. Yes, confirmed. Understood. How long? Roger that. He put the device away and looked at Jake with an expression that mixed sympathy and something that might have been fear. Jake, there are some things about your family that your parents probably don't know. Things that were classified long before you were born. What kind of things? Before Dr. Carter could answer, Commander Barnes entered the medical bay. Her face was grim. Dr. Carter, I need to speak with you privately. Jake has a right to know, Dr. Carter said. It's his blood that triggered the protocols. Commander Barnes looked at Jake for a long moment, then nodded. Earth Command is sending a ship. They'll be here in 6 hours. Until then, this entire section of the station is under quarantine. 6 hours? Jake said. For a cut on my head? Not for the cut, Commander Barnes said. For what your blood revealed about who you really are. Dr. Carter stood up and activated a privacy shield around the medical bay. The device hummed softly, ensuring that their conversation couldn't be overheard or recorded. Jake, Dr. Carter began, 50 years ago, before humanity joined the Galactic Council, there was a secret program called Project Guardian. The goal was to create humans who could survive in hostile alien environments if first contact went badly. Jake listened in growing disbelief as Dr. Carter explained how volunteer families had been given genetic modifications that would be passed down to their children and grandchildren. The modifications were subtle: enhanced healing, improved reflexes, resistance to alien diseases, but they were also designed to remain dormant unless activated by stress or injury. Your great-grandfather was one of the volunteers, Dr. Carter continued. The modifications were designed to activate only in their descendants and only when needed. What we didn't expect was that the activation signal would be detectable by biosensors. So I'm some kind of genetic experiment? Jake asked, his voice shaky. You're the descendant of people who wanted to protect humanity, Commander Barnes said. But the political situation has changed since then. When humanity joined the Galactic Council, we agreed to full transparency about our biological capabilities. The existence of the Guardian bloodlines was supposed to remain classified forever. Dr. Carter's communication device buzzed again. This time, the voice on the other end was loud enough for Jake to hear. Dr. Carter, this is Admiral Kate Thompson, Earth Command. What's the status of our Guardian asset? Guardian asset? Jake repeated. Is that what I am? Dr. Carter activated the device's speaker. Admiral, Jake Morrison is safe and uninjured except for a minor head wound. However, the entire station now knows that something unusual happened when his blood was analyzed. Understood, came the Admiral's voice. Dr. Carter, begin preparation for full activation protocols. The political situation may require it. Admiral, he's just a 16-year-old kid, Dr. Carter protested. He's a Guardian descendant who's been compromised. The choice may no longer be his to make. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Full activation? What does that mean? Commander Barnes answered. It means turning on all the modifications your great-grandfather's generation built into your genetic code. Enhanced strength, improved reflexes, accelerated healing, resistance to toxins and diseases, essentially making you into what humanity designed you to be. But it's irreversible, Dr. Carter added quietly. Once activated, you can never go back to being a normal human. Through the medical bay's small window, Jake could see other parts of the station. Alien beings were moving through the corridors, but many kept looking in the direction of the medical section. Word was spreading that the human teenager had somehow triggered a major emergency. Dr. Carter, Jake said slowly, what happens if other species find out about the Guardian program? That depends on how they react, Commander Barnes said. Some might see it as humanity hiding our true capabilities, which could damage our standing in the Galactic Council. Others might see enhanced humans as a threat, and some, Dr. Carter added grimly, might decide that humanity needs to be controlled or eliminated before we become too powerful. Jake's head was spinning with more than just the aftermath of his injury. Everything he'd believed about himself, about humanity's place in the galaxy, was changing. "So what do we do now?" "Now we wait," Commander Barnes said. "And we hope that when Earth Command arrives, they can contain the situation before it gets worse." But even as she spoke, alerts were going off throughout the station. In the Altarian sector, Zix-4 was telling his father about the incident in the dining hall. In the council chambers, alien representatives were demanding answers about the emergency lockdown. And in deep space, sensors were detecting the approach of ships that weren't supposed to exist. Jake looked down at his hands, wondering what else his body might be capable of that he didn't know about. The cut on his forehead had already stopped bleeding and was healing faster than it should have. If that was just the beginning, what would full activation do to him? "Dr. Carter," he said quietly, "do you think Zix-4 knew what would happen when he hit me?" "No," Dr. Carter replied. "But that might not matter to the people who are going to have to deal with the consequences." Outside the medical bay, Jake could hear footsteps in the corridor. A lot of footsteps moving with purpose. Whatever was coming next, Jake had a feeling that his quiet life as a normal human teenager was over forever. The first sign that everything had changed came 3 hours later, when the station's external sensors detected something impossible. 3 human destroyers were decloaking just outside Kepler Station's defensive perimeter, ships that according to all official records should not have existed. Commander Barnes stared at her tactical display in disbelief. "How long have they been there?" she asked her sensor operator. "Unknown, Commander. They just appeared when they dropped their stealth systems. Our sensors show no record of their approach." In the medical bay, Dr. Carter's communication device crackled to life. "Dr. Carter, this is Admiral Thompson aboard the ESS Guardian. We're requesting immediate docking clearance for a priority medical evacuation." "Admiral," Dr. Carter responded, "Jake is stable. There's no need for evacuation." "Doctor, this is no longer about Jake's immediate health. The situation has evolved beyond our initial containment protocols." Jake was sitting up on the medical bed, feeling much better than he should have after hitting his head. The cut on his forehead was already just a thin line, and the headache was completely gone. His enhanced healing was apparently working overtime. "What's happening out there?" he asked. Dr. Carter looked at his readings and frowned. "Your vital signs are changing, Jake. Heart rate increasing, but not from stress. Your metabolism is accelerating." "I feel fine," Jake said, though that wasn't entirely true. He felt energized in a way he'd never experienced before, as if electricity was running through his veins. Commander Barnes burst into the medical bay. "We have a problem. The Altarian government is demanding an explanation for our military presence. They're calling it an act of aggression." "And the other species?" Dr. Carter asked. "Mixed reactions. The Viridians are calling for calm. The Korthak want a full technical analysis of how we hid ships from their sensors, and there are rumors spreading that humans have been lying about our capabilities since we joined the Council. Through the station's communication system, they could hear announcements in multiple languages. Jake's translator was picking up bits and pieces. Demands for answers, calls for emergency council sessions, and growing fear about human intentions. "This is getting out of hand," Dr. Carter said. "We need to control the narrative before it gets worse." That's when Admiral Thompson's voice came through the communication system, broadcasting on all station frequencies. "This is Admiral Kate Thompson of Earth Command, addressing all residents of Kepler Station. 3 hours ago, an incident occurred that activated emergency protocols designed to protect human citizens. I want to assure all species that Earth has no hostile intentions toward any member of the Galactic Council." In the Altarian section of the station, Zix-4 was huddled with his family and friends, watching the announcement on their viewing screens. His father, a high-ranking military official, had arrived shortly after the emergency began. "You struck a Guardian," his father said grimly. "Do you understand what that means?" "I don't understand any of this," Zix-4 replied. He seemed like an ordinary human teenager, weak, like all humans are supposed to be. "Apparently humans are not what they seemed," his father said, "and now we may have a diplomatic crisis because of your actions." Back in the medical bay, Jake was experiencing changes he couldn't understand. His vision seemed sharper, able to pick out details across the room that should have been too small to see. His hearing was more acute. picking up conversations through the walls that should have been inaudible. "Dr. Carter, something's happening to me," Jake said. "I can hear people talking 3 rooms away. And look at this." Jake held up his hand and concentrated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his fingers began to move faster than human reflexes should allow, his hand becoming a blur of motion before returning to normal. Dr. Carter's eyes went wide. "The activation process has begun. We're running out of time to reverse this." "Do we want to reverse it?" Commander Barnes asked. "Given the political situation, having an active guardian might be our best option." Admiral Thompson's voice continued over the communication system. "For the safety and security of all station residents, Earth Command is implementing temporary protective measures. We ask for your cooperation and understanding during this process." The station shuddered slightly as the human destroyers moved into docking positions. Through the medical bay's window, Jake could see armed human soldiers moving through the corridors, taking up positions at strategic points throughout the station. "This looks more like an invasion than protective measures," Jake observed. "That's because it essentially is one," Dr. Carter said grimly. "Once the Guardian protocols were activated, military doctrine requires securing the area until the situation is resolved." Jake's communication device, which had been silent since the emergency began, suddenly buzzed with an incoming message. It was from Click, his Korthak neighbor. "Jake Morrison, are you well? There are many rumors circulating about humans and hidden capabilities. Some beings are saying you are not what you appeared to be." Jake looked at Dr. Carter, who nodded. "You can respond, but be careful what you say." Jake activated his device. "I'm fine, Click, but you're right that things aren't what they seemed." "I'm still the same person, though, are you?" Click responded.
"Scans indicate human ships with technology beyond what your species has previously demonstrated."
"There is speculation that humans have been concealing their true development level." That was uncomfortably close to the truth. Jake looked at Commander Barnes. "How long has humanity been hiding advanced technology?" "Since before we joined the Council," she admitted. "We wanted to establish peaceful relations first, prove we weren't a threat. But we also wanted to be prepared in case those relations broke down. So we've been lying to everyone?" "We've been careful," Dr. Carter corrected. "There's a difference between lying and not revealing everything at once." Admiral Thompson's ship finished docking, and within minutes she was striding through the medical bay doors. She was a tall woman with graying hair and the bearing of someone used to command. She looked at Jake with an expression that mixed concern and calculation. "Jake Morrison," she said. "How do you feel?" "Different," Jake answered honestly. "Stronger, faster. My senses are much sharper than they were." "The activation process is about 60% complete," Admiral Thompson said, consulting a handheld device. "We can still reverse it, but the window is closing rapidly." "What happens if we don't reverse it?" "You become what your great-grandfather's generation designed you to be. Enhanced beyond normal human limits, capable of surviving in environments that would kill baseline humans. But you also become a symbol of humanity's hidden capabilities. And if we do reverse it, the political situation becomes much more complicated. Other species will want to know why we had emergency protocols for protecting normal human teenagers. They'll start asking questions we're not ready to answer." Jake looked around the medical bay at the adults who were deciding his future. Through the window, he could see alien beings watching the human soldiers with mixtures of fear and suspicion. This whole situation had started because Zix-4 thought humans were weak and wanted to test that assumption. "What would happen if I stayed activated but tried to build bridges instead of hiding?" Jake asked. "What if we use this as an opportunity to be honest about what humanity really is?" Admiral Thompson and Dr. Carter exchanged glances. "That's a very dangerous path," the Admiral said. "Once other species know our true capabilities, there's no going back." "Maybe it's time to stop going back," Jake said, feeling more confident than he had since the whole crisis began. "Maybe it's time to go forward instead." Outside the medical bay, the future of human-alien relations hung in the balance, and a 16-year-old boy was about to help decide which direction it would tip. Jake made his decision while watching alien families hurry through the station corridors outside the medical bay window. Children of various species clung to their parents, confused by the emergency lockdown and the presence of human soldiers. This crisis had started with fear and misunderstanding, and Jake realized it could only end by replacing those with truth and trust. "I want to stay activated," he told Admiral Thompson. but I want to do this the right way. Jake, Dr. Carter said carefully, you understand this changes everything about your life? There's no going back to being a normal teenager. I stopped being a normal teenager the moment my blood hit those sensors, Jake replied. Now the question is whether I become something that helps or something that makes things worse. Admiral Thompson studied him for a long moment. What do you have in mind? I want to talk to Zix-4. This whole thing started because he thought humans were weak. Maybe it's time to show him what we really are, but also show him that being strong doesn't mean being dangerous. 2 hours later, Jake stood in conference room 7 feeling like a completely different person than he had been that morning. The activation process was now complete, and the changes were remarkable. He could hear conversations happening 3 levels away, see details in the station's metal walls that revealed their molecular structure, and feel the air currents created by the station's life support systems. But more than the physical changes, he felt a sense of purpose that he'd never experienced before. He wasn't just Jake Morrison anymore. He was Jake Morrison, guardian descendant representing humanity's true face to the galaxy. Zix-4 entered the conference room with his father and 2 Altarian diplomatic officials. The young Altarian looked nervous, his scales a muted gray color that indicated shame and uncertainty. When he saw Jake, his eyes widened. You look different, Zix-4 said immediately. I am different, Jake replied. When you hit me, you activated genetic modifications that have been dormant in my bloodline for 50 years. I'm enhanced now, stronger, faster, more resilient than baseline humans. Zix-4's father stepped forward. Are you here to demand retribution for my son's actions? No, Jake said. I'm here to explain what really happened and to apologize. You apologize? Zix-4 looked confused. But I am the one who struck you. And I'm sorry that we never told you the truth about what that might mean, Jake said. Humans have been hiding our real capabilities since we joined the Galactic Council. We were afraid that if other species knew how advanced we really were, they'd see us as a threat. Admiral Thompson, who had been standing silently in the corner, activated a holographic display. With permission from Earth Command, I'm prepared to share some previously classified information about human technological development. The display showed images of human ships with capabilities far beyond what other species believed humans possessed. Stealth technology that could hide entire fleets, weapon systems that rivaled anything in the galaxy, and enhancement programs that could create individuals with superhuman abilities. Why hide this? Asked the senior Altarian diplomat. Because we've seen what happens when powerful species meet less powerful ones, Admiral Thompson replied. Throughout galactic history, those encounters usually end badly for someone. We wanted to prove we could be trusted before revealing our true strength. Zix-4 was staring at Jake with what might have been awe. So when I struck you thinking you were weak, you accidentally triggered the very security systems designed to protect humanity's most valuable genetic assets, Jake finished. Your gentle greeting activated protocols that treat any injury to a guardian descendant as a potential act of war. I could have started a war with a friendly punch. Zix-4's scales shifted to pale blue, indicating shock. You could have, Jake agreed, but you didn't because we're choosing not to let it start one. Over the next several hours, Jake found himself at the center of a diplomatic revolution. Admiral Thompson arranged for representatives from all major species on the station to attend an expanded briefing about humanity's real capabilities. Jake served as a living example of what enhanced humans could do, demonstrating reflexes and strength that amazed the assembled aliens. But more importantly, he showed them that enhanced abilities didn't equal aggressive intentions. I could probably defeat any 3 of you in hand-to-hand combat, Jake told the mixed group of alien dignitaries, but I'd rather work with all of you to solve problems that none of us could handle alone. Click, his Korthak neighbor, raised one of his multiple arms. Question for Jake Morrison. If humans possess such capabilities, why did you choose to reveal them now instead of maintaining the deception? Jake looked around the room at the various alien faces, scaled, insectoid, plant-like, and others he was still learning to identify. Because deception creates fear, and fear creates conflict. My friend Zix-4 here thought humans were weak, so he tested that assumption in a way that nearly created a crisis. If we'd been honest from the beginning, this never would have happened. Zix-4, who had been quiet through most of the briefing, finally spoke up. Jake Morrison, I want to make formal apology for my actions. In my culture, We proved friendship through physical challenge, but I failed to understand that different species have different strengths and vulnerabilities. Apology accepted, Jake said. But I have a proposal. Instead of apologies, how about we work together to make sure misunderstandings like this don't happen again? And that's how Jake Morrison, enhanced human teenager, became one of the galaxy's first interspecies cultural advisors. Over the following months, he worked with young beings from various species to create better communication protocols and understanding between their peoples. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities did cause political upheaval, as Admiral Thompson had predicted. Some species felt betrayed by the deception, others impressed by human strategic thinking, but slowly a new balance emerged in galactic relations. Humans were no longer seen as the weak newcomers to galactic civilization. Instead, they were recognized as a powerful but cautious species that preferred cooperation to domination. The existence of the Guardian program, rather than creating fear, became a symbol of humanity's long-term commitment to peace. They had prepared for war while working for peace. Jake's enhanced abilities made him an ideal bridge between human and alien cultures. He could keep up with Altarian physical challenges, process information as quickly as Korthak computational specialists, and appreciate the subtle environmental changes that Viridians used for communication. But perhaps most importantly, he helped other young beings understand that strength and aggression were not the same thing. His friendship with Zix-4 became a model for interspecies cooperation, showing that differences in capability didn't have to mean differences in respect. 6 months after the incident in the dining hall, Jake stood in the same conference room where he'd first revealed the truth about Guardian descendants. This time, he was addressing a group of newly arrived human and alien students, part of an expanded exchange program. The most important thing to remember, he told them, is that we're all stronger when we work together. It doesn't matter if you're human or Altarian or Korthak or any other species. What matters is that we choose to build instead of tear down, to understand instead of assume. Zix-4, now one of Jake's closest friends and a co-leader of the cultural exchange program, nodded in agreement. Jake Morrison taught me that true strength is not about how hard you can hit, but about how much you can accomplish when you choose not to. As the new students dispersed to begin their orientation, Jake looked out the conference room window at the busy corridors of Kepler Station. Humans and aliens worked side by side now, no longer hiding their capabilities from each other, no longer afraid of what they might discover. It had all started with a prank that went wrong and a few drops of blood that revealed too much. But sometimes, Jake reflected, the best changes came from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, being honest about who you really are was the first step toward becoming who you were meant to be.